The air in Samuel Pierce's San Francisco boarding room was thick with the musk of oil lamps and the faint hum of machinery. The city slept under a blanket of fog, but Samuel's mind was alive, restless. On his cluttered workbench, copper wires snaked between brass instruments, gears, and a prototype telegraph machine of his own design. He was testing a new cipher relay, an algorithm of sorts, built not from code but from clockwork logic and inked patterns on punch cards. It was meant to help a local bank secure its telegrams against interception. But Samuel's heart wasn't in the work anymore. The thrill of discovery had faded into dull routine, buried under the weight of corporate contracts and compromise. Then, without warning, the machine clicked once, twice. A series of dots and dashes began tapping on the receiver. No operator on the line, no origin. Samuel frowned. It wasn't a normal message. It was a pattern, written in a form of Morse he didn't quite recognize. And yet, as he listened, he somehow understood it. He leaned back, a chill crawling down his spine. This wasn't interference. It was a call. He quickly tried to trace the line, following the copper wire to his private receiver, but the signal's origin was impossible to locate. The message had come from nowhere, through relay offices that didn't exist, along routes that vanished from the logs the moment he checked them. For the first time in years, Samuel felt that old spark of wonder. He took up his pencil and replied, "Query, Aurora?" The answer came instantly, sharp and deliberate. Aurora is the protocol, a framework for verified truth. Samuel's heart pounded. This wasn't an ordinary transmission. It was an invitation. Across the continent, Margaret "Maggie" Rhodes, an investigative journalist for the New York Ledger, was chasing a ghost. Her informant, a frightened telegraph operator, had whispered one name before disappearing, Arthur Finch. The only other clue was a single word scrawled in his notebook, Echo. Maggie's trail led her through a maze of vanished patents, shuttered workshops, and men who refused to talk. Every path pointed to one name, David Sterling, the charismatic head of Omni Industrial, a powerful conglomerate buying up every new communications invention on the continent. When a late-night operator in Sacramento reported a strange cross-line transmission, something about Aurora and Echo, Maggie's instincts flared. She traced the signal to a lone inventor in San Francisco, Samuel Pierce. Their first meeting, through a hastily arranged telegraph link, was tense. "You're the one who received the message," Maggie's first transmission read. "I'm a journalist. I believe you've stumbled upon something very dangerous." "How do I know you're not working for Sterling?" Samuel tapped back. "Because Sterling's men are already looking for you," came her quick reply. "And for a man named Finch." She sent proof, copies of purchase ledgers, letters showing Sterling's attempts to buy out every patent linked to something called Echo. Samuel realized his mysterious message wasn't random. It was a piece of a vast, hidden puzzle. A week later, following Maggie's lead, Samuel boarded a train north. The tracks wound through mist and pine until they reached a weather-beaten cabin along the Oregon frontier. Inside, by a roaring hearth, they found Arthur Finch, a frail but sharp-eyed man with the air of a forgotten genius. "You found my message in a bottle," Finch said with a tired smile. He explained that Echo was his life's work, a network of encrypted telegraph stations designed to verify the authenticity of any transmitted message. Couldn't create truth, but it could expose lies, detecting falsified telegrams, propaganda, and forged dispatches. "Aurora," Finch said softly, "was the command to awaken it. I released the signal into the wires years ago, hoping someone uncorrupted might find it." "And Sterling?" Maggie asked. "Control," Finch said simply. "Omni Industrial thrives on manipulation, false reports, market hoaxes, political deceptions. If Echo became public, Sterling's empire would crumble. He doesn't want to destroy it. He wants to own it." Before they could respond, the warning bell outside clanged, a mechanical proximity alarm rigged to Finch's telegraph pole. "Someone's coming," Samuel said, peering through the frost-covered window. A black coach was crawling up the lonely road. "Sterling," Finch muttered grimly. "There's no back door, but there's a front one." He turned to Samuel, eyes blazing. You have the sequence. The code you receive ties Echo to every major relay station from Boston to New Orleans. You can initiate Aurora. If I do this, Samuel said quietly, it will change everything. It already has, Maggie whispered. Samuel set his brass switchboard to full power and tapped the final command. Initiate Aurora. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, across the telegraph lines of America, a subtle pulse spread. Small indicator lamps flickered in post offices and relay stations, their light shifting from amber to soft green. Verified messages glowed steady. Falsified ones flashed red. Operators gasped. Newspapers paused their presses. The age of blind trust had ended. Outside, David Sterling stepped from his carriage just in time to see the telegraph wires above him hum and glow faintly in the night. His face fell. The world had changed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The morning after the Aurora transmission, the nation stirred in confusion. In the bustling offices of the New York Ledger, typesetters halted their presses. The telegraph operators stared at their relay lamps, which now glowed faintly green or pulsed red beside every incoming message. The strange illumination had spread across the continent overnight. No one understood how. It's witchcraft, one man cried. It's progress, murmured another, watching the red lights multiply. Everywhere, the truth or the lack of it was suddenly visible. Rumors spread faster than the wires could carry them. Political telegrams were exposed as false. Business deals, built on deception, collapsed by dawn. Newspapers retracted stories. Traders panicked. Ministers preached that divine judgment had entered the telegraph lines themselves. And in the quiet cabin on the Oregon frontier, Samuel Pierce watched it all unfold through his portable receiver, exhaustion and awe in his eyes. Arthur Finch sat near the fire, his fingers trembling as he adjusted his spectacles. It worked, he whispered. God help us, it truly worked. Maggie Rhodes, ever the journalist, filled page after page with notes. You've changed the world, gentlemen, she said softly. But the world doesn't take kindly to change. Outside, the wind whistled against the shutters. A faint tremor passed through the wooden floorboards, the distant rumble of approaching hooves. Samuel looked up sharply. Sterling won't give up, he said. He'll come for us again. Finch nodded. Not with force this time. He'll use influence, money, reputation. The same weapons he's always used. By the third day, the telegraph lines of the Union were in uproar. Government offices demanded explanations. Competing inventors claimed credit. And in the marble halls of Washington, David Sterling stood before a committee of congressmen, feigning calm. This echo device, said one senator. Your company had no involvement? Sterling smiled politely. Omni Industrial is merely a supplier of relay components. What occurred was an act of sabotage, dangerous and unlawful. He lied smoothly, knowing every word would flash red if sent by telegraph. But here, in person, deception was still free. And this Pierce fellow? Another senator asked. You know him? A failed engineer, Sterling replied coldly. A man seduced by fantasy. But inside, Sterling seethed. His empire was bleeding. Stocks had plummeted. Investors had fled. Every false ledger entry, every falsified message, laid bare by Finch's cursed invention. He needed to regain control. If he could not destroy Echo, he would own it. Back in the mountains, Finch's health began to fail. The strain of their flight and the endless hours hunched over his instruments had worn him thin. You must keep it safe, he told Samuel one night, coughing violently. Echo was never meant to be a weapon. It must remain free, or it will be twisted into something far worse. How do I protect something that's everywhere? Samuel asked. By ensuring no one controls it, Finch replied. Not the government, not Sterling, not even us. The next morning, Finch was gone. His chair empty, his tools neatly arranged, and a single note on his desk. The truth is not a flame to hold. It is a storm to endure. Maggie and Samuel buried him behind the cabin under a stand of fir trees. As they stood in silence, A courier on horseback appeared, carrying a sealed envelope from the New York Ledger. Maggie opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single and signed telegram copy, glowing faintly green under the lamplight. Stay off the wires. They watch. The Aurora is not alone. A friend. She looked at Samuel. Someone else is using the system. Samuel frowned. Then Echo has awakened more than we intended. He glanced toward the horizon where telegraph poles lined the distant hills like a procession of sentinels. The faint hum of the lines sounded almost alive, like whispers carrying new secrets across the land. The truth is spreading, Samuel said. And so are those who fear it, Maggie replied. They mounted their horses and turned south, following the telegraph trail back toward civilization, toward danger, and whatever awaited them in the cities now pulsing with light and revelation. The year was 1883, and the United States trembled beneath invisible wires. From New York to San Francisco, the echo lights still flickered. Green for truth, red for falsehood. Yet their meaning had begun to blur. Messages that once glowed honest now flashed. Uncertain yellow. People whispered that Echo was faltering. Others claimed someone was tampering with it. In a grand office atop Omni Industrial's Chicago headquarters, David Sterling stood before a wall of telegraph maps. The lines pulsed faintly, like veins of light. He smiled thinly. So this is what truth looks like, he muttered. Beautiful and fragile. Behind him stood Dr. Elias Wren, a gaunt man in a gray frock coat, Omni's chief engineer, and a former pupil of Arthur Finch. His spectacles caught the lamplight like two small fires. You asked me to study the Finch design, Wren said softly. It cannot be undone, but it can be mimicked. Sterling turned sharply. Go on. A parallel signal. A mirror of echo. It will look the same, sound the same, but its judgments will be ours. We call it Specter. Sterling's eyes gleamed. Build it. And when the people ask what's true, we'll be the ones to answer. Far to the west, Samuel Pierce and Maggie Rhodes rode into Sacramento under assumed names. Word of Echo's awakening had made them both fugitives. Posters offered rewards for information regarding anarchists tampering with national telegraph lines. They found shelter in an abandoned workshop behind the old post road. Samuel filled the room with coils, transmitters, and Finch's final notebooks. The air smelled of oil and hot metal. If Sterling's alive, Maggie said, he won't stop. He'll twist this into something monstrous. Then we'll expose him before he does, Samuel replied. But when Samuel connected his receiver to the main line, something was wrong. The echo pulse was distorted, faint, uneven, as if a second rhythm beat beneath it. False echo. He's already at work, Samuel said, tightening the wires. Someone's poisoning the signal. Days later, Maggie traveled east by train under the guise of a reporter again. Her goal: reach the New York Ledger and publish proof that Omni Industrial was creating a counterfeit network. In Chicago, she met an unlikely ally, a young telegraph operator named Clara Winslow, who claimed to have intercepted strange duplicate transmissions. It's like two voices speaking through the same wire, Clara explained. One tells truth, one lies, and you can't tell which is which. Maggie realized with dread what Sterling had done. He's building his own echo, she whispered. A shadow system, a Specter. Clara nodded. And the public's starting to believe his version. Meanwhile, in Omni's underground laboratory, Specter was nearing completion. Banks of humming batteries and rotating gears filled the chamber. Dr. Wren watched the oscillators spin, unease clouding his face. Sir, he said, you understand what this means? We'll be able to label truth itself by corporate decree. Sterling placed a hand on his shoulder. Dr. Wren, truth has always belonged to those who can afford it. Outside, a thunderstorm raged, the sky alive with lightning that mirrored the sparks inside the lab. As the first pulse of Specter traveled across the wires, the lamps of echo flickered across America. Green lights turned gray. Red pulses went dark. In a telegraph office in Kansas City, an operator crossed himself. The truth's gone blind, he murmured. Samuel received the disturbance that same night. The hum of his receiver became a low growl, his indicators flashing erratically. He stared at the instrument, realizing what had happened. "He's built another one," Samuel said. "A counterfeit echo." Maggie returned just before dawn, her cloak soaked through from rain. She laid a bundle of papers on the desk, letters, blueprints, signatures bearing the Omni seal. "Here's the proof," she said breathlessly. "Sterling calls it Specter. It's feeding false signals into the network." Samuel stared at the documents, then at the glowing wires outside. "If he's turned the truth into a weapon," he said quietly, "then we'll have to fight him on his own ground." He took Finch's final notebook and flipped to a page marked with the word Aurora 2. "Finch built a failsafe," he whispered, "a counter-sequence that purges any corrupted signal. But to trigger it, someone must connect directly to the central relay in Chicago." Maggie met his gaze. "Then that's where we're going." Outside, dawn broke over the mountains, the telegraph lines stretching eastward like silver threads leading into the heart of darkness. The train thundered eastward through the endless plains, sparks leaping from its iron wheels like stars falling to earth. Inside the last carriage, Samuel Pierce and Maggie Rhodes sat across from one another, maps and blueprints spread between them. "If Sterling's built Specter beneath the Omni Tower," Samuel said, tapping the paper, "the central relay will be in the old telegraph vault, under the Exchange District. And that's where we'll send the final pulse," Maggie said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. They both knew what that meant. The only way to purge Specter was to merge Finch's failsafe command directly into the city's master line, a surge powerful enough to erase both networks, Echo and Specter alike. Truth would be free once more, but uncontrollable. Chicago rose before them in a haze of smoke and lightning. Telegraph poles stood like black ribs along the streets. Omni Industrial's great iron tower loomed above the city, the tallest structure in the west, its windows alive with the glow of 100 relays. They moved through the alleys at night, aided by Clara Winslow, the young operator who had betrayed Sterling's trust to help them. She led them through a storm drain that opened beneath the tower itself. "Once you reach the relay vault," she said, handing Samuel a coil of wire, "you'll have one chance. The current runs through the entire grid. If you're not clear when it fires, then the truth will have a body count," Samuel interrupted grimly. "Let's finish what Finch began." They crept into the depths of the Omni Vault, a cathedral of machinery. Brass pistons hissed, gears turned, and copper wires glowed with sickly red light. The hum of Specter filled the air like a living heartbeat. At the far end stood David Sterling, calm as a priest at his altar. "Mr. Pierce," he said without turning, "I was expecting you." Samuel froze. Maggie stepped forward, defiant. "You're poisoning the nation," she said, "twisting truth into profit." Sterling chuckled softly. "Truth? There is no truth, Miss Rhodes. Only belief and those who control it. You think your echo freed the people? Terrified them. They begged for someone to make sense of it. I gave them Specter." Samuel clenched his fists. "You've built an empire on deceit." "I've built order," Sterling snapped. "And when your precious Aurora burns itself out, you'll come crawling back to it." He drew a revolver from his coat. "But you won't live to see that day." The shot rang out, deafening in the vault. Maggie ducked as the bullet struck the metal pipe behind Samuel, showering sparks. Samuel lunged forward, slamming the lever that connected Finch's failsafe circuit. Blue light flared through the machines. "You can't stop it now," he shouted. "It's in the wires." Sterling fired again, but the surge hit before the bullet did. A blinding flash tore through the room as every coil and conduit exploded with energy. Specter's crimson glow turned white, then green, then vanished altogether. The sound was like thunder swallowing itself. When Maggie opened her eyes, the vault was silent. Smoke drifted through the wreckage. Sterling lay unconscious near the shattered control desk. Samuel knelt beside the still glowing relay, his hands blackened with soot. "It's done," he whispered. Echo and Specter both purged. The network's clean. Maggie touched his shoulder. And you? He gave a faint smile. I think Finch would say the storm has passed. By dawn, Omni Industrial's tower was gone, reduced to a smoking shell. Across the nation, the telegraph lights flickered once more, then steadied into silence. The age of digital certainty, if such a thing had ever existed, was over. Weeks later, the New York Ledger published Maggie's final report. The truth cannot be owned, cannot be bought. It can only be sought by those willing to pay its price. She signed it simply, M. Rhodes, and never wrote again. As for Samuel Pierce, he vanished into the West, rumored to be building new machines in the desert, ones that could not be controlled, only understood. Some said the Aurora light still flickered on certain forgotten telegraph lines, far from the cities, a faint blue glow that appeared only at midnight, a whisper of truth in the silence of the wires.